Welcome everybody to episode 4 of this year's Disability Filibuster. My name is Catherine Frazee, and I am going to immediately hand over the spotlight to my co-chair or co-host of today's broadcast, a very dear friend of mine and of the filibusters, Doris Rajan. Go ahead, Doris.
Thank you, Catherine. We're so excited to have been invited today. I'll say a little bit more about myself and let everybody else introduce themselves. But before we do that, I'd like to just call upon Kelly Johnson to do the land acknowledgement.
Ooh, there we go. So hi everyone, or as we say in my language, because I am Mohawk, we say Sego, which basically means the same thing. I've been asked to open this group up. So right now I'm just lighting sage. For those of you that don't know what sage is, it just helps clear negative energy, if anyone's carrying anything, just to start everybody off in a good way. So I've been asked to do land acknowledgement. So before I do that, I was asked to explain what the land acknowledgement is and why we do so. So we do the land acknowledgement. The purpose of that is to recognize the ancestors before us that we're all on this land, whether it's indigenous or non-indigenous lands all over the world, because they're the ones that wrote history to get to where we are today. And to acknowledge Mother Nature for the trees, the water, the animals, because without that, we would not be able to basically live. And yeah, that's pretty much why we do, is just to acknowledge, we all come from the earth. That's the belief for indigenous culture, and just give thanks where you come from. And then never forget the things that made you, which is, again, Mother Earth. We need food, we need water, we need animals, just because they were all here before us too with our ancestors. So that's the reason why we give the acknowledgement, and it's to start off things in a good way. So I'll just start. I like speaking from the heart. Doris knows that, because I think it's more heartfelt and it's just more personal. So, and that's one of the teachings I've been given, is to just speak from the heart, because it's all about what you feel. So I just acknowledge the ancestors, like I said, that were here before us. And again, give thanks to the trees, the water, the flowers, the animals, and everything, artifacts, anything else that was here before our time came to be. We give, I hope and pray that those struggling with poverty, homelessness, addiction, and all that they help get on their right healing path and find their way. I pray that everyone has a good day and we all have a good meeting. Yeah, and it's good to be here, and let's, look forward to a good meeting, all in good spirits. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Doris, and I'm also on the same territory as Kelly. It's Treaty 13, and as Kelly said, maybe I missed that, but it's the land of many different people over the centuries, and more recently the Haudenosaunee people, the Neutral, the Wendat Tianotati or Wendat people, and now the Anishinaabe Mississauga settlers, and then all of us non-Indigenous settlers. I use the pronouns of she, her. And to describe myself, I'm a brown skin woman identified person with long blackish hair. And I'm wearing glasses, which help me with reading. So what we're going to do, before we actually go around and introduce our panelists, I'm just going to put it back to Catherine, just to give us a little bit of overview of what this is today.
Thank you. Yes. Hi. All right. I've met all of you, and my name is Catherine Frazee, And but for the sake of people who are tuned in, watching this broadcast, or who will watch it, welcome to them too. As Kelly has said, we start out in the right spirit, and that is a spirit of welcome at the Disability Filibuster. Now, I should first quickly describe myself for people who are tuned in on their telephones or not using a screen. I appear on your screen as an older white woman. I use high-tech electric wheelchair that moves occasionally, rocking back and forth. I'm behind a few tubes, one of which is a microphone, one of which is a tube that helps me to breathe, and one of which is a tube that helps me keep my throat clear. And behind me is a bookcase. I speak today from MAiD, the ancestral and unceded land of the Mi'kmaq people, where I am grateful to be a settler and to live and grow and learn on this beautiful and sacred land. I wanted to explain the name of the Disability Filibuster because not everyone is familiar with that terminology, but very simply put, a filibuster is a way to speak to the government when they refuse to listen. And so a disability filibuster is a filibuster. Oh, wait, sorry, Pat, we have to turn that off. Sorry, got a bit of an echo in here. The disability filibuster, we've been having once a week for the last 4 weeks, and we're going to continue till nearly the end of June. That's our plan. So that people with disabilities will have a place to come together and to support one another, to speak out in the hope that we can make our government listen to us. When we are together, we are stronger, and we don't have to wait to be invited into the offices of our leaders. We can create our own space. And if they want to listen to us, this is where they should come. So we've been doing this. We started doing this last year, and we actually did it in a much different format where we tried to go and pretty much did go around the clock. People were staying up all night to keep talking to try and get the government to listen. Now, there's a very particular thing that we're focused on and that we're deeply worried about. And that is a law, a new law that was just passed last year. And I'm going to talk more about that law a little bit today. But I think first, what everybody wants to know is, who are these really cool people appearing on their screen? So if you don't mind, we'd like you to help them, help everyone get to know who you are. Doris?
Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, let's get into it. So for our panel, just you can introduce yourself and share your pronouns if you're comfortable doing that, and a little bit about yourself. And I know you're involved in a lot of our projects and meetings, and this time we have more time. So would love to hear, for you to share whatever you'd like about yourself to everybody watching. So how about we start with Tara?
sorry, I was muted. My name is Tara, and as for my appearance, I have dark brown hair, glasses, because I too need them to see. I never really realized I needed glasses until it was a little bit too late, but it's a wonderful world to look around when I can't. I'm wearing a black t-shirt, and it's a sunny day in Edmonton, Alberta, and there's no snow for once. It's fantastic. What do I enjoy? Was it, or
Anything you'd like to share about yourself, Tara?
okay, I adopted a dog from the city pound recently. He's a lot of fun and I'm enjoying him. His name's Hanzo, just to be different. I had a dog before who was my service dog. I trained him to be my hearing dog. He was fantastic. Hoping Hanzo can do that too, but he's fantastic just the way he is. I enjoy arts, crafts, training dogs. I like collecting things, antique collectibles and stuff, toys. I enjoy filmmaking. I'm not really a pro yet. I have made one film so far. It won the Viewer's Choice Award at the Edmonton Short Film Festival. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm not always organized, but I try to be.
That's amazing. Thank you. I did not know that you were a filmmaker. And Tara, you also are very active in sharing your experiences and giving advice on a lot of work that we're doing around inclusion and accessibility. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Kelly.
Hi, everybody. Me again. So my name is Kelly. I'm in the same territory, Toronto, like Doris. It's rainy right now, pretty cloudy. I'm in my living room right now, so it's a little echoey. I've been busy doing painting and stuff, so everything's kind of with the home decor. What I like about myself, I guess, is my personality. Like, I like making people laugh and feel good, and standing up for people and things that I believe in with good intention though. Yeah, and again, I'm really happy to be here.
Do you want to share a bit about just how we met and the kind of work you do?
Yeah, so I work frontline with the Indigenous community here in Toronto. So that's how I met Doris. So I worked in the housing sector as a housing worker for about 5 years. I've also worked in currently now in shelter settings, and I do outreach as well. So I met Doris when I was actually a housing worker through one of the Indigenous organizations out here called Native Women's Resource Center. I got on board with their housing project over there, and then all through the years, me and Doris just developed a working relationship with as a frontline Indigenous worker, giving my perspective, my experience on what I've seen and the individuals I've worked with, as well as my own lived experience. And I myself have a learning disability. So it's pretty, I know the effects and everything about it. And yeah, I'm really good to be here. And I like the knowledge that I've learned, not just from my lived experience, but from the working groups that I've been a part of with Doris. And it helps me to, the women that I do work with, it helps me to advocate and educate them too on what their rights are in terms of, the government and the government listening to us. So, and again, I'm really happy to be here.
Thanks, Kelly. Rainbow?
Hi everyone, my name is Rainbow. I use she and her pronouns, and I have long light brown hair with some blonde highlights. I have a t-shirt on, a black t-shirt that says "Born to Sleep." And behind me is my furnace door with some art on it that I designed for the other workshops about my plan day with technology. And a little bit about myself and how I met Doris and other folks. I basically started up my own project in Scarborough back in 2000 and 11 for QT BIPOC SA, so queer, trans, Black, Indigenous people, color, straight allies. For youth 29 and under for that have disabilities, sorry, abilities. We use abilities more than disabilities. It's more of like a accessible word that the youth wanted to use. That's more accepting. So I run this project and I'm always on computer and tablets and phones, writing grants, documentation, budgeting, the whole shebang bang, always up to like 4 o'clock every morning. And it's a lot of work and I really love I love doing it and I'm enjoying it. I just found out this morning that we just won our 3rd Inspired Award for the past 3 years. So I'm very happy. Yeah, and I have a great team and youth with lived experience from the QT BIPOC SA community, and I'm very happy to be part of this meeting and share some experiences and meet new people and just have a good vibe and yeah, learn so much from everybody. So thank you.
Thanks, Rainbow. And just really quickly, can you talk about the community that you work in, like in Scarborough, because that's often such a neglected community. Yes. And the other thing, I'd love you to share just a little bit about that photo shoot you did a couple of years ago. That was amazing, and why you did it.
Thanks, Doris. Yeah, that's what happened when you don't have a chance to have a coffee, which I need one. So I work mostly out of Scarborough because Scarborough is very isolated and not that much resources up here. Mostly like downtown has a lot more like LGBTQ and QT BIPOC programming. Scarborough has like very minimum, so there's like not much, like not even a rainbow flag. So I wanted to create something up here in Scarborough so we can have more of like a diversity and more of like a multicultural accepting for youth to access resources and programming. And then the project with Doris was mentioned, reminding me to talk about, sorry. A couple years, I think it was like 2 years ago. Yeah, like 2 years ago. I have done a photography project, sorry, I'm so sorry, for youth, for QT BIPOC youth who were disabled or who identify as ability, to design their own portraits and want to feel sexy in a wheelchair and feel good about their body and about you know themselves as an individual, and try to decrease the stigma around disabled body and also feeling good about themselves, like feeling sexy and a model. And so these portraits basically were really huge and we did like a big celebration. And so the grant that I basically just finished just now, I got approved for another one, to do another photography project, and a video that's going to be tied together for another photography project. So I'm just waiting for 2 more grants, but we already got 1 approved. So I'm just crossing fingers for the rest, basically. So that's my day.
That's great. Thank you, Rainbow. As you can see, Rainbow has a lot on her plate and a lot to share. Novelette, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Novelette, and I got to Doris through the South Africans advocating for people that have disability, and I've been with Doris for I was in touch with Doris for a couple of years now, and it's an ongoing basis. I just feel good talking about people that have disability and learning more about what to do if you're discriminated against with your disability. And I've learned a lot from all the different people I've heard on the panels. I've heard people with different situations, and I'm just enthusiastic to learn more and more about what you can do for people that cannot advocate for themselves.
That's great. And do you want to share a little bit about your family?
Well, I have a son that has HDD, and he sometimes has like pseudo seizures, and sometimes here, but I'm more trained to deal with his disability, with his pseudo seizures. So sometimes some people will not understand, but his seizures comes out of nowhere, and sometimes he'll just pass out at any time, anywhere. So I have to be motivated and be mindful of where he's around, and so that he doesn't hurt himself.
Thank you. That's great. And Sandra.
Hi, my name is Sandra. I was born in Portugal. I have 5 siblings. And when I was 7 years old, my parents decided to bring us all here. Well, we came with my mother. My dad was working in Canada, and we came all with my mother. And my parents never treated me different than my siblings. So that really helped me out. So by watching my siblings, by watching my siblings grow and move on with life, I wanted to move on with life too. I wanted a boyfriend, I wanted a kid, I wanted all that for myself. So I did meet my partner, and I had my kid to learn that my kid had a disability. She has autism. I learned so much through my daughter, and by my parents not treating me different. That's why I'm so strongly to help my daughter. I live with my daughter and my cat, and because of my disability, if I live with my partner, my daughter's father, I will lose my income, my support. For me, I can lose my support. So I choose to live with my daughter and my cats. And my parents, thankful. I'm really thankful for my parents to support me in all this. But, well, a little bit about myself. I'm not very tall. I'm a short person. I wear glasses. I have long brown hair, but I choose to dye it. I have 2 arms, 2 legs, and I'm able to get around. And I'm very happy to have my daughter to teach me a lot about technology. So I'm really thankful for her, and she's my whole life. And because of her, I get to travel and see the world through her eyes. That's a blessing for me.
Thank you so much, Sandra. I know, knowing you all these years, your daughter is a very important component of your life, part of your life. And
Yes.
I just really thank you for sharing. It was nice to hear about your parents, that they've been so supportive over the years, because that's not always the case, right? Like, so I can hear how much that means to you. So thank you. And
no, for them not to treat me different, that really, really, really helped me in life. It's because of them I'm the person I am now. So I really thank them a lot.
Thank you, Sandra. And Skittles.
Hey, my name is Skittles. I go by she, her pronouns. I'm currently in my bed, away from the rain, on and off rain that's going on in Scarborough. I'm wearing a short t-shirt, red with some yellow on it. And I'm also multitasking too, trying to do the homework and listen at the same time. So, and I also have shortish black hair with some gray in it. And I'm also brown, like a lot of people in this world. And I need Doris from Rainbow's Pride in Scarborough, especially, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Doris, I think it was your cousin that did the photography. Yeah.
Jordan, yeah.
Yeah, he did a really amazing job with the photos. Especially, he
And
captured
Skittles
the,
was, you were part of that photo shoot that Rainbow was talking about. So
yes,
maybe we'll share the link to that later.
yes. And I finally had better reception than I did on Friday, because I was at Community Living of Toronto because I had to pick up some food with Rainbow, and their Wi-Fi isn't the very best, so that's why it was like staticky. But thankfully at home I have like a really fast internet connection, so it's a lot better now. And
Great.
yeah,
Thank you so much. So everyone, we're going to talk a little bit about your experiences with, doctors, nurses in the hospital, any kind of like medical clinic. And as we were talking about in preparation for this meeting, I wonder if I could just first turn to Rainbow and ask you if you are okay to share the experience that you talked about last time. I think it was at a hospital, right?
Sorry, I was on your you mute. Sorry, you mute. Sorry, mute. Sorry. Yeah, thanks, Doris. Yeah, the experience I faced. Yeah, I this one. Well, yeah, it was during the evening when this happened at the Scarborough General Hospital, just like in Scarborough, when I found out that I had like a really nasty strep throat, and it was extremely painful. And it's like infection in the throat where it's hard to swallow and talk, and it's like very swollen. So I wanted to go to an emergency because I'm like, I'm not waiting for obviously my family doctor would have. At that time I didn't have any family doctor because of like not that much. There's not that many. Especially in Scarborough, especially Scarborough, like where we're talking about LGBTQ friendly. There wasn't that many doctors that were trans friendly and knows what they're doing around transgender people versus, somebody who doesn't identify as a transgender. It's like they can get different treatments, if I'm saying this right, like in like an accessible way. So I decided to go to the hospital, and I went by myself. And through the time when you have to check into the emergency room, you have to sit in like a blue chair and see a nurse and tell them what you're here for. And then they put you into like a blue chair after the red chair to get registered with like the bracelet around your arm. And so through that time, they kept on calling me by David Hunt, he, him pronouns, through the whole process. And I kept on explaining to them, like with my sore throat, obviously I'm there like saying, I go by female, because I was like really sick. And, and it's not funny because my throat's like, I look at them like, it's not funny, my throat's sore and you want me to speak, like seriously. And so when I got to the family doctor part of the room, I had to wait for about 2 hours with a sore throat, and people are like, people look at you weird, like, oh, is that a guy, is that a girl, So like, and especially nurses, the way that they walk by and whatever, they had to stick like an IV in my arm, like an IV, I think it's like an antibiotic or something. And so I had that. Well, that's right. I'm mistaken. I got that after I saw the doctor because he wanted me to get the antibiotics and stuff. Sorry. So when doctor finally called me into the room, he comes in with like the chart of paper that they call you by your name, and they have all the files from like your old doctor or whatever. So he comes in and it's like, oh, is this Mr. David Hunt? And I said, and like when my sore throat, I go by Rainbow. Like I'm trying my best, and I'm so sore, and my throat's about to fall off, like it's so sore. And then he said, okay, we'll have to call you by what it says on your identification. And I thought at that time, I'm like, I'm just gonna shut up. I'm tired of this. I can't do this right now. It got me really frustrated, and then he looked at the thing. He said, so I see that you're diagnosed with a developmental disability retardation. And I said, no. I just give up. I didn't want to say nothing. I just let him say whatever he wanted to say. And then they finally stuck me in an IV where I had to wait till the IV was all finished. I had like a milligram in a bag in the arm. And then the nurse called me, came out and said, checked up on me and said, oh, how you doing? Dave, are you okay? Da, da, da. And then I'm sitting there like with my hand on my head. I'm like, I'm giving up on this whole process with the hospital system. Like seriously, it's really bad and they're not trained properly. So basically before the bag was empty, the nurse came back out and said, how's things? Okay, so the bag's almost empty. So the nurse came out and says, okay, so you're almost done, blah, 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 blah. Then you're good to go. But then before the bag was empty of the IV, was like a little bit left in the bag. She came out, there's people in the waiting room too, like out in the open. She came out and said, so you're almost done, David Hunt, blah, 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 blah. I basically physically ripped the needle out of my arm. The IV, I ripped it right out and stormed the hell out of the hospital. Like, I'm not putting up with this crap. I'm gone. If I die outside, that's my choice. I'm like, I'm gone. It's ridiculous. Like, and my arm was like so sore. And then I walk right out. I don't care. So I went back home. I just goggled some water and salt in my throat. And then finally my strep throat just disappeared after a week. And I'm like, I'm not going back to hospitals ever again. So it was like, it was a traumatic experience. And I share this all the time. And it happens all the time. I go to hospitals, even for checkups or my family doctor or anything. Even when I go with my friends who need support, they call them by misgendered, or they call them by the sex, or they call them by retardation, or I don't know. It's extremely frustrating, but that's my experience and my story. Like this happened like a couple years ago, and ever since then I turned myself into like an activist, and now it's like I stand my ground. That's it. Enough's enough. Like, I mean, like I just yell, like really.
Yeah, right. No, that's really traumatic, as you said. And I know you were, maybe you could tell us more about just like the kinds of feelings that come up when that happens. Like what are the sorts of feelings you're having about yourself, about them, about the situation?
The feeling, yeah, thanks, Doris, and I'm thankful for being helpful. You're asking me these questions. It's more helpful because I do forget some things, and that's important to say. I also like to, for people that love to learn about other people, like me, and I like to do that. So I'm happy to be part of this amazing project. The emotions and feelings that I was facing, majority is. My heart is broken half, and I kept on telling myself, and I said this actually to my worker, because I have a support worker with the community living in Toronto, and every time I see her, I keep saying to everybody, even Skittles, which is a good friend of mine, that's part of the project because we're both transgender. I say it to everybody, and everybody looks at me like, Rainbow, stop saying that, like, because I just like feel like nobody wants to call me by the right pronouns or misgender me. It's like I should just go back of like shaving my head and being a man. Like, you mean, it's that feeling of like, I can't be what I want to be. I can't focus on my goals. I can't focus on my dream of being that woman I want to be as a woman. A trans woman is a real woman. No matter if you're a black woman, white woman, or gender neutral, or if that person wants to identify as a woman, let them be what they want to be. Don't read their identification and say, oh, assume that they go by he or she, or don't even use the word it. Like, you ask questions to that person as transgender. What pronouns you go by? It's not that hard. So sometimes I say that and people look at me like, Rainbow, you are a woman. Stop. You are. These people need education. It's not your job to teach them. They need to be educated properly, no matter what system. But it's also important for me now as an activist to teach them So then they know. So it's like, I'm not getting paid for this to teach people like that. It's not fair for a transgender person who needs healthcare, who teaches a doctor that takes university college to learn this stuff. So it's like I just want to give up, and emotions are really hurtful. I feel like giving up on being a woman, running away, locking myself away. I just it's so much in my what's it called? Like the emotions are in my heart that just like breaks in half, and then I feel so numb and like isolated, and I feel like I just want to like take on the world in like a not a bad way but a good way of like supporting other transgender people and just sprinkling glitter dust all over them to make them feel so happy, or just be aware of what they might face in like their own health systems. Like, you mean, it's just, yeah, but that's the emotions I face a lot.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Rainbow. And then also, you know, your experience, you were also talking about, you know, how not only that, which is so horrendous, but on top of it, the label that they gave you at the hospital around your disability, like it just compounds, right? In terms of, yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Doris, can I jump in?
Yes, please, please.
First of all, I just want to say thank you, Rainbow, and thank you everyone for what you've shared so far. But Rainbow, I wanted to let you know that in the audience there are people who are responding that you can't see. And I'll read you what one of them just wrote. It's from our friend Jeff Sash. And Jeff wrote, "I'm sorry that happened to you, Rainbow. And hello to everyone. I don't know if you know Jess, but a dear friend of the filibuster. And people hear you, and you know, we hear that story really resonates with some of the themes we've been talking about at the filibuster, that sometimes because of the way you're treated, you can just give up. You can just want to give up to make that disrespect or that pain or that anger stop. And so you've given us a really clear example of how giving up can just hit us out of the blue. When we have dreams, when we have plans, when we have hopes, and boom, it's like lightning, this strike of what we call ableism, the failure to respect people with disabilities, the failure to respect trans people, the failure to respect any of us for who we are. And it's not just that they ignored it, they actively refused. Even when you told them, corrected them, they refused. That is so cruel and insulting. So yeah, just bravo to you, my friend.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm just wondering, Kelly, like, do you have any commonalities, or can you see some common experiences with the healthcare system over the years, including mental health and?
Yeah, like I also have friends that are transgender, and I know they go through that too. I've had to advocate for clients that identify to be a certain gender, and it is very frustrating because I've even said that, you know, going to a hospital with a client and just telling the nurse doctors, like, don't go by the genitalia they have on their birth certificate. If they're choosing to go by this name, you need to respect that. And I've had to educate, like, even other frontline workers to understand that this is what it means to be two-spirit. If a person wants to identify by a certain ethnic group or a certain sex, respect that, because you have to understand you're being part of the problem. You're causing, you know, depression, mental health, and these are individuals that are the most targeted for hate crimes, racism, you know, all the negative things that go with it. And, you know, I've had to sit a lot of times and talk with clients I've worked with, even my friends that are two-spirit, and just hear and see the hurt that it causes them, you know, where they're like Rainbow, they just want to give up. you know, I don't deserve to live, and you know, and it's really heartbreaking and it's sickening. And I think with healthcare system, they should be educated with those kind of things. And the other thing is, not everyone maybe goes by, they might go by both male and female depending on the day. So it's just sitting and talking with the individual. Okay, if you don't always go by she or him, what would you like me to address you as today? Because I've had clients I've had to work with like that too. The other thing is, but the healthcare system, they need to be really educated on these kind of things, because it's, some people are too, we can't change the way people think, but they're too structured on the way they think. What I mean by that is, okay, they were raised in their time, maybe there was no such thing as trans. You were either just, you know, gay or straight. But this is a different time. Just educate yourself on the things that are going on out there. You know, I'm always like, you got to change with the times. It's just, it's the reality, and how to, you know, respect people, right? I've lost clients because of that too. They've committed suicide. They went back, you know, doing drugs. They just gave up hope, because it's, and that's the reality we live in, where behind closed doors, workers like myself, these are the things that we see and hear. You know, something simple as healthcare, like Rainbow's case, should be able to go get the treatment, get respected to what you know, what you want to be called, as opposed to, it's not Rainbow's job to constantly correct the medical field on what she wants to be called. So I just find with a lot of front lines, even like the jobs I do, it's the same thing. And it is a constant cycle of educating everyone so that they'll understand. Because, you know, at the end of the day, it's all about what that individual needs and wants, not about what we want as workers. It's where that person is, meet them where they're at, and respect what they want to be called or what they want to do. Not everyone that's Two-Spirit as well wants to get, you know, the transgender change. And there's that concept. I've had people say that too. Well, I thought, you know, if they're going from male to female, they need to be like, no, that's not the case. Not everyone wants to identify like that. So definitely education constantly. You know, because otherwise the ignorance is going to keep continuing. And what they don't, health professions and, you know, some like jobs I do, they don't realize that you're putting the mental health, addiction, all this emotional vulnerability, you're adding to the rise and the cause of it. So if just take the time to educate yourself or get to know the person that they're dealing with, so that, you know, don't categorize everyone in one pool, I always say, because everyone's different. So from my experience working with individuals, just to sum it up, that yes, I've seen a lot of that, and it's heartbreaking to see, but it used to make me so upset. But I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk in a gentle way, like I just spoke, instead of getting really angry. It's all about grounding in facts, and, you know, because you're representing, you want to make change, but in a positive way, you know, instead of, you know, arguing and, you know, but just educating them in a gentle way, you know, makes a big difference. So, and not everyone's fortunate enough to have advocacy when they go to these kind of things. So definitely, I've seen what Rainbow's experienced with my own eyes.
Can I just ask, Kelly, thank you for that. Like, you know, Rainbow, and you've really underlined it. We're talking about transphobia and ableism, but one of the things that you also bring to this conversation and this discussion is just, you know, how personally your own journey of understanding the impact of colonialism and that trauma, and you've brought that in the people that you support now. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so that kind of like Rainbow's Indigenous as well. So if you're looked at, it's one thing to be, you know, transgender or Indigenous, but when you're both, even with, you know, if you're both Black and Indigenous, you know, it raises the bar for more, you're being targeted more, constant labels, you name it. I could go on and on about that, but you're more, it's just, again, it's the uneducation, the history that, you know, was taught before us. We didn't teach history. We didn't write history, like with Indigenous, for example. We didn't write history. Our ancestors did. The settlers did. We didn't write it. We were just the cause and effect after the fact that it had happened. So, and then you said transphobia, then there's racism. You know?
Yeah, and I remember you telling me, we had a great discussion once when you were talking about like the relationship to some of the people on the streets that are Indigenous and, you know, brain injury and, you know, and then all these mental health practitioners or workers that would be giving pills. And then a lot of the work you're doing is around going back to cultural teachings and healings. I wonder if you could talk about like that kind of discrimination that you've noticed with people on the streets.
So not everyone that has, whether it be mental health, any type of disability, mental, physical, not everybody wants to be on medication. There's a lot of reasons why. One example I'll give, again, back to Indigenous perspective, is in residential schools, the children there were testers. Like they would drug them up with anything, you know, like smallpox, chicken, like they just, and some of them that lived to tell their story, they still have these experiences. So the last thing they want to be is on, say, pills, if that's going to make them drowsy, because they've lost their cultural already. They want to get the cultural back, the traditional. So what that means is working with a healer or an elder the natural way, learning your culture, going to, say, a sweat lodge, which basically you're putting your prayers out, you're letting all this pain out, you're getting on your healing path. That's the way we Indigenous people look at it. So it's having that respect. But the Western world, you know, there a lot of them are about the money. You know, we'll just pop a pill, because when doctors, a lot of people don't know, when the prescription gets cashed, the doctors make extra money. So rather than treat the individual as a whole, as Indigenous people, we believe you're just treating, again, you're pooling them together like they're anybody and everybody. So there's a lot of bad experiences that, like even me personally too, I've had, where it's, do you really want to be on all these pills? Is it necessary? And a person has that right too, because it is their body. I educate people I work with that too. It's your body. If you are not comfortable taking something, you have a right to speak up. If your doctor or whoever you're seeing does not respect that, you are allowed to get a second opinion. Any type of service. It's all about, individuals are allowed, and they are able to find someone that's going to be a good fit. So that's the other thing too. It's educate. And I've had this experience myself. I didn't know that either. When I started my journey, I didn't know. I just thought, okay, you know, you're being referred to this doctor. I've had doctors myself when I'm like, I'm not taking those pills. Why? Because I'm going to heal our elder. I've had doctors look down on that. Well, that's not going to help you. It's like, and I would believe them for a while, then I would feel guilt and shame attached to that. You know, okay, maybe they're right. I need to take these pills. So I got brainwashed, my experience, by the Western world, that you need medication, but you don't. You don't always need that. I had to learn that from healers and elders and traditional counselors and stuff. And with Indigenous, we lost our culture. So that's like losing a part of yourself. You're lost in the world. You don't know who you are, where you come from. So people turn to different things to cope with what's missing inside. And most of the time it's with Indigenous, once we get to know our culture, we have back what we lost. And it's a big deal. It gets you that sense of worth of what you deserve. You learn more, you know, about yourself, about what others are going through, that you're just not the problem. So, but Western world for sure, you know, it's all about money, unfortunately. And it's not, you know, and people are, not everyone can advocate for themselves and say, no, you know, I don't want to take this medication, or I don't want to go see this doctor. I don't want to get this surgery. It's just educating what rights are, because I never knew my rights till I started and I had to learn the hard way too. with being discriminated against too. Oh, you're Indigenous. That's why you're having a mental health breakdown. You're probably drinking. And I've been labeled like that going into the medical world too. So it's not a fun feeling. They might as well just threw me out in the street and just, you're trash, here you go, goodbye. Another, but it can affect a person in the long run in many different ways. And this is just some of the root causes of what, like Indigenous, even non-Indigenous too. I've talked to I have non-Indigenous friends. They go through the same thing too. How we're marginalized in, different ethnic groups. A lot of them gone through the same thing too. And again, not everyone is like that. Don't pool everybody into the same pool because we're all different. We all might bleed the same, yes, but we're all different. Just talk to an individual as a whole, which is another part of the problem with the healthcare profession and other professions, even government. We're all the same. We're not all the same.
Right.
One person, it's finding that time I find to sit and get to know this person or get to know me, and you'll see what I need rather than just thinking I'm like everybody else, because you get lost in the cracks too. So for me, that was a big deal.
Wow, great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Tara, I wonder if you could tell us about some of your experiences with the healthcare system.
Okay. Well, there's been quite a few, but just to start off, I'm severely hard of hearing. I was quote unquote normal, whatever that is, before I was about 19 when I lost my hearing, and it's going a downward, spiral. So I'm always having to adapt to new situations. But anyways, I'm not a sign language user because unfortunately it's not instantly embedded into our head when we lose our hearing. So sorry, the background noise. So basically every interaction that I have with the world, the medical world, or beyond just general world, it's, how would you say, they expect me to know sign language, and I've been specifically yelled at and said, why have you not brought your own interpreter? And this is from medical professionals, whether it's clerical staff and doctors, nurses, etc. And so I'm finding that's very difficult and challenging. Also, when I go to an appointment, I ask for help verbally because that's how I communicate. And unfortunately, I explain also I'm hard of hearing, but the individuals I'm interacting with doesn't have any sort of training within about being hard of hearing or even deaf. So they have no idea. So I try to kindly educate them on what would work for me or people with similar situations. So basically, most of the time they take it very well, and they'll say, yes, we can do that for you. We can face you. We can talk at a slower rate, and we can confirm things. So basically, yeah, they do that, but 15 seconds later, they forget. And it's just kind of crazy. So that's a really huge challenge. I go into the doctor's office. I cannot understand at all what is being said to me. And this can be life-saving information for myself. But the same happens when I go to a pharmacy. There's no accommodations again, such as having a caption device, such as maybe a tablet that automatically records and captions on screen. So that's a problem. And then I said earlier, I go to the pharmacy and they give me the instructions. You must do this with your medicine, you must do that. And great, but I can't understand what they're saying. So I'm being put in danger. And that's kind of a scary situation.
Can I just ask Tara, like, that is a really scary situation, especially like compounded with other disabilities, right, that you live with, like in terms of memory. And did you want to talk about that as well?
Yeah, it's memory's a problem too for me, because I had a brain injury and brain cancer, and unfortunately you can't get brain transplants. So I can go to the doctors and I can ask for them to either write notes or just email me something, a quick message. So I'll have a reminder, as I'm not really good with, what would you say, multitasking, like writing and listening and focusing and trying to remember. And unfortunately, to this point, no medical individuals, whether it's doctors, nurses, secretaries, etc., will accommodate me with that. So something simple and doesn't cost any money, just maybe a minute of their time, is not possible for them, unfortunately. And a lot of it, they say, is to do with privacy, but it should also be about dignity and safety. So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I was thinking, Skittles, about the other day when you were talking about, you know, when you go to the hospital and try to access supports, you don't have that many problems because your mother's, I believe, in the medical profession, right?
My mom works in the hospital, so even when I feel like I'm going to like even when I feel like I'm not getting the service that I need or deserve, my mom would just take out her ID badge, because she works as secretary in the diabetes section at Centennial Hospital, and she said, "Oh, Mrs. Rajan, how are you?" Because she also delivers Avon to them too. So that's how I usually get services. And whenever I'm in the hospital, say for example, when I choke on something and I'm in the hospital, my mom would always have to be there with me, because she knows about my disability more than I do, because she knows my history. Like, she asked me there, even though, say if I'm in the hospital and it's like and it's like COVID, beginning of COVID, when we're not allowed, people are not allowed to have visitors, they would have to make an exception, because she is my primary caregiver and all that stuff.
Has there ever been a time, Skittles, when you've had to go to the doctors or the hospital or an appointment without your mother being there?
I go to the dentist on my own, but there was one time, like, my mom was there with me. She was in the waiting room, and I had to get my wisdom teeth out. The dental hygienist I had at the time wanted to give me Tylenol for the pain. I said to her no, because I don't do well with pills, because I choke on it. And I try to keep telling her that, but she wouldn't listen. It's not that she's uneducated, it's just she needs to trust the person. And when I took the Tylenol pill, especially the Tylenol pill, I choked on it and I had to cough it out. And then what she could then they called my mom in, And my mom explained to her, and then she said, oh, okay. It was, that was alone was a traumatic experience for me, because I thought that pill was gonna send me straight to the hospital. Because when I choke, it's like,
choke on it.
it's a life and death situation for me. And
Why do
that's
you
why
think,
that's why I'm
sorry,
always on a soft food diet, and I have to eat white bread and roti and white rice and all that stuff, instead of like the grainy stuff, because it'll make the food get stuck. And one thing that triggers the swelling in my throat is spicy food, like the spicy, like spicy pepper. Like I can handle a bit of spice, but if it's like enough for me to feel like I'm gonna have to choke, then I can't really eat the food. Like that's why I don't really eat whenever I'm at people's house and all that stuff, because I don't know how spicy their food is, especially Caribbean people, or Caribbean and people in Asian culture. We like our spicy food, and if I wasn't allergic to the capsaicin that's in the pepper, because that's what makes the pepper spicy, I would eat lots of it. But
yeah, but you just
yeah,
can't. So Skittles, I'm just wondering, like, like you said, that's a life or death situation. Why do you think that the dental assistant wasn't listening to you?
because she didn't believe me that I have a very thin lining, like a small lining in my esophagus. Like usually people's esophagus is like straight. Mine isn't straight. It's like kind of a bit crooked, and it's very thin, like almost as thin as, say, my Samsung tablet, like almost thin as that. I have to chew foods properly and drink with every meal, even if I have to drink a lot of liquid.
Yeah.
So
One common thing so far, Rainbow, Kelly, Tara, and Skittles, you're mentioning is that the healthcare person did not listen to you. No matter how many times you tried to tell them what you needed, they didn't listen.
yep.
I'm wondering, I'm going to ask Catherine if Catherine has any comments or questions, but I'm wondering, Sandra, a Novelette, do you have anything to share in terms of your experiences with doctors or the healthcare system?
I have experience. Can you hear me? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
I have an experience. It's not with me. It's not so much with me. It's with my daughter. Like, because of she's artistic and because she can handle the dentist really well. So there was one time where she had to get some work done to her mouth. So she had to put down to sleep so they could work in her mouth. When she woke up, she was very like tense and very nervous. So the nurse was holding her down, and this was at sick kids. And so the nurse was holding her down and wherever. And because the nurse was holding her so tight and like all she wanted was me, she bit her finger. And she's like, how dare the child bite my finger? And I'm just there. I'm like, I cannot believe you said that, because she is artistic. And I'm like, I didn't say a word, because I'm like, I was so worried about my daughter. And
Yeah.
like,
Were you so shocked, Sandra? Like you just
yes,
couldn't believe it?
I was from sick kids.
Yeah, so you expected that they would understand. Did you
Yes.
explain to
Yes, I did. I told them everything about my daughter.
Mhm.
Artistic, she's, this is the way she is, and she's very tense, and
Did you feel like they were listening to you? Like, did you feel respected?
you know what? I did not feel respect at all. I did not. I came home and I cried.
Mm. And why do you think you weren't being respected?
I just felt like they were not respecting me because of my daughter, because of my daughter being artistic and being so like tense, and like
I think they weren't listening to you.
they were not listening. They were not listening at all.
Yeah. What about you, Novelette? Anything that you can share?
Well, most common situation is that when I go to the doctors, sometimes they will ask for the health card, but they won't say please. They just rudely say, "Can I have your health card?" Without any please. And I sometimes have to remind them about their manners situation when they're asking people for their health cards and stuff.
Mm.
And sometimes they would say, they would say, "Can I have your health card?" It's please, can I have your, but they don't say please, they just say, "Can I have your health card?"
Right.
And I find that very disrespectful, especially when it comes to someone that is a senior. They're yelling at the senior, "Can I have your health card?" And some of them don't hear very well.
Do you ever feel, Novelette, that you're being treated differently because you're racialized, you're brown like me, you have a disability?
No.
You never feel that?
Nope.
Never.
No, but I know some doctors are like that. But my doctor that I go to see, well, she's from South Africa, so she.
Oh, okay. So she, yeah.
The different religions.
She understands, yeah. Well, wow, that was a lot of different experiences. I don't know, Catherine, if you wanted to comment or ask any further questions.
Thank you, Doris, and thank you, everyone. You have shared some really powerful examples of why many people with disabilities don't want to have anything to do with the healthcare system. Hospitals and doctors and nurses are supposed to be places where a person goes for healing, not for work. You have to go to work now and educate the healthcare workers. No, you go there because you're sick and you want help. You want to be guided toward healing. You have to trust your healer, and your healer has to respect you and respect your voice. And when I listen to how Skittles is able to describe her experience, and in great detail, Skittles, you can explain. You have the medical terminology even. You sound like a healthcare worker. You're talking about your esophagus and, clearly you're speaking their language, and still they can't hear. They can't hear, or they won't hear. And, Tara, the simplest little accommodation that you are looking for doesn't cost a penny to send you an email or to sit and write a few notes on a piece of paper while you're right there in the office and hand it to you. That's not going to be a confidentiality problem. They're going to hand it to you directly, and they won't do it. And these are the people that we're supposed to go to if we are in serious trouble, and trust to bring us back to a healthy place. It's all very topsy-turvy world when you think about it. And one of our earlier guests on the filibuster have said, you know, some people who live without disabilities, who are well off, who are privileged, probably white, they believe in this magical healthcare system that works the same for everybody, that helps us all, that comes in like a knight in shining armor to rescue us from the brink of death, not push us over the edge. So that Rainbow has to literally rip the IV out of her arm and march out the door to salvage a bit of dignity. It's a very harsh reminder that you've given us all that it doesn't always work perfectly like the Walt Disney movie about healthcare. It's a very flawed system, and the system where many people, everyone who's here right now, has been able to describe situations where you're just not being respected. And even if it's a simple thing, like Novelette, you're saying, just treat me with respect, like speak to me like you might speak to your grandmother, not like a police officer who's arresting you and telling you to put your hands behind your back. No, this is an exchange. People are supposed to be helping you to feel better. And how does that kind of talk help you to feel better? And Sandra, you know, you're taking the most precious person in your world, your daughter, to be cared for. And you're explaining carefully what her needs are, what she can and cannot do. And suddenly, it's as if you said nothing, because perhaps they heard nothing. But suddenly your daughter has to fight for her life and use the only strength she has, which is her teeth in that moment. And suddenly we call it escalation. Everything all of a sudden gets a whole lot worse than it was, than it should have been. It should have just been a calm and healing experience. So I'm really sorry. I'm really horrified to hear these stories, but I can assure you that people who are listening are writing in and saying that they have similar experiences. Jess wrote, Kelly, that what you shared for Jess as a non-binary trans person who has the physical disability and who doesn't want to surgically transition. And the reason for that is not because they don't want surgery, but because going to a hospital and having surgery and having to stay there to recover brings back all kinds of horrible and traumatic and painful memories. And David wrote in, and David said, basically, let's remember that what's happened to each of you, these aren't isolated stories. We didn't go looking, we didn't survey 100 people to find these stories. These experiences are widespread. And Kelly pointed that out, right? You know many people who have experienced abuse and harm and pressure and coercion, which is being forced to make a choice or pressured to take medicine that you don't want. All of these things are happening, it seems, in the world of people with disabilities. They're happening a lot of the time. So thank you for making that so very clear, and so very vivid, and so very honest for all of us. So, Doris, is it time to?
Well, I just want to thank you for your words because I think it really summarized it. And you know what I was thinking as you were speaking, Catherine, that it's almost like, and I don't know if the other people agree with this, but it's almost like you're surprised when you're treated well. Like
Yes.
you go in and, oh, you're being nice to me. You're listening to me. You're slowing down. Yeah, I see a lot of heads nodding. Well,
It's true.
we're just,
And we also, I mean, I know as a person with a disability, we have our strategies, right? And I think everybody on the call, you have strategies to survive that. It's not supposed to be that way. But I wanted to tell Skittles in particular that, like you, Skittles, always have someone, my partner, who Patricia, you should just wave to people. Patricia's always with me when I have to go to the hospital. And I'm going to give each of you a tip because Patricia has a really special tip. They won't always listen to her either because she's small and she's got gray hair and she gets a bit angry sometimes and they think, you know, they don't have to pay attention to her. So she went down to the hospital gift shop and bought a t-shirt that had the name of the hospital on the pocket. And it made her look like she worked there, just like Skittles' mother. And they started treating her with more respect. So I think sometime we should donate t-shirts for the friends of people who are going into hospitals so that they're gonna look more official. Wear a uniform when you go. Wear a police uniform. I don't know. Whatever you have to do to get some respect. Okay.
that's great.
We're gonna,
And yeah, like, and sometimes, you know, because we were hearing about a lot of different things, but and particularly if you live with an invisible disability, sometimes like a lot of the stuff Rainbow was talking about
yes.
had to do with the label of trans, right? And I know
Yes.
Kelly, lots of experiences Indigenous. And if you live with these multiple ways of being, you know, you can't separate them. They're just who you are. Like, I think it's Rainbow saying that, like or Kelly too said this, that we're a whole. This is our whole. So if you're treating us racist, are you treating us because of the disability? It's not clear, but there's lots of things going on at the same time. There's lots of disrespect and lots of discrimination happening at the same time.
That happens a lot with Ontario Works and ODSP.
Yes.
I have been a recipient in the past Ontario Works, but I work with clients a lot where it's like, okay, you're Ontario Works. Well, are you getting a job? Well, hello, it's not that easy. People got criminal records, whatever else that prevents them. It's not that easy. I've had to educate workers too. And then the way that those workers talk to individuals, it's disgusting. Like there should be some type of, if you're going to do that job, you should be held accountable or have some type of sensitivity training. Because, you know, a person can't help if they got to go on Ontario Works or they got to go on ODSP. They can't help that. You know, so that's another thing that me and a lot of other workers, we talk about too. There's a lot of trauma. And what can you do? Because that's your livelihood, that's your income. So a person has no other choice but to give into the system because they need to pay rent, they need to feed their kids and so forth. So there's just seems to be no type of training for these workers. And this is a regular thing. So I hope, me and a few other workers I've talked to, they want the same thing because it's constant. We're going in there and educating these workers.
Yeah.
That these are people. Like you educate me on what you have to do in your end, I'll educate you what we have to deal with on our end. But this is a person's livelihood. You can't, so I hope that's something the government, even from this panel, will address somehow, because it's not this, and it happens all over,
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
get these people types of training they need. I've come across some good workers that have sensitivity training or that been social workers, but there are just some, it's just, you think it was their own money that they're paying the individual.
That's a good entry into the next section, but I see Tara's hand is up, so I'm just gonna turn it over to you.
I just wanted to say, Kelly, I totally agree. They don't have the training, and they've gone to school for so many years, and empathy was not part of the training, and it should be. Just an example, I'm with an organization, I'm in an organization for the hard of hearing, and they do a lot of free educational talks. So they talked to the local university hospital, and they said they'd come in for free, do an educational session, and it was like 30 minutes during lunch, so everybody could bring their lunch and not miss work or anything, and just listen and hopefully learn. So they did big advertising around the hospital and everything, and I think 3 people of, I don't know how many thousands of workers in this hospital showed up. So it must be mandatory education. It can't just be voluntary, please show up, because education is a really big problem I'm finding. And thank you so much for sharing that, Kelly.
Thank you all. And what I'm going to do now is kind of like to hear from every one of you to talk about, as if you were speaking directly to the government. And what would you want to tell them to make your lives better so that you don't want to die, so that you don't want to access medical assistance in dying? So who would like to go first? Yeah?
I wonder, does everybody understand what medical assistance in dying is, what it means, what the law is? Because I can walk you through some of the changes, if that would be helpful first. Tara has her hand up, I think.
I think that might have been from before, right, Tara? Your hand up?
Oh, yes. Sorry to interrupt. My mom was searching on the internet. She's wonderful. She's like a private eye. But anyway, she found some documents. I think I sent it to you earlier, Doris, but it was actually charts and stuff on how much the government could save on medical if they implemented the MAiD assisted dying program, because they wouldn't have to be caring for as many persons with disabilities. And I found that so disturbing.
Yeah, that's fair. And just an answer to Catherine's question, do we want to have Catherine just go over what medical assistance in dying is and then some of the new changes, or are you pretty okay with that?
Pretty much okay.
Pardon, Novelette?
I'm pretty much okay because I used to be a PSW worker, and I know the risk of they have their right to sign if they want to. If they want to, they have their dying wish. If they have a document that they want to sign that can relieve the government of their part on the behalf of, they want the government to intervene. Like,
Right.
if the family wants the government to intervene on taking the person off the life support.
Yes.
And
Okay.
And Catherine, I wonder if you could just talk about, quick the new. You spoke about it a little bit earlier, but you were going to go in more detail.
Yeah, so I'll start where Novelette left off, because you're absolutely right, Novelette. We all have the right to refuse treatment at any time. And Kelly was talking about that earlier when they prescribe medication. you don't have to fill that prescription. You can get another opinion. You can make your own choices. And so one of the ways in which that principle applies is that if you are on life support, if you are near the end of your life and you want to stop all your treatments, even though you know that means you will die, you have that right. Nobody can do anything, whether it's medically or otherwise, to our bodies without our consent. That's a really important principle. But now the law goes a lot further. And if you think about the law this way, we have a criminal code which tells everybody what's a crime. And one of the worst crimes, if not the worst crime, that you can commit is murder, right? You cannot kill another person. I know that's one of the Christian commandments, but it's also a law. And if you kill a person, you're going to be arrested and you're going to be taken to jail and you're going to be there a very long time. We all know that. It's kind of a no-brainer. There are some exceptions to almost every law, and there are a few exceptions to even the law against murder. You can probably think of a couple, but I'll just say, to be quick here, if you commit murder, if you kill someone because they're coming at you with a knife or a gun, then that's self-defense. And so it's not a crime, it's not murder. If you accidentally kill someone, not intending to, that's not murder. Accidents happen, and if it wasn't what you meant to do, if you just turned around and bumped somebody over and they hit their head and they died, you're not going to go to jail for murder. So those are exceptions to the crime of murder. Well, 5 years ago, oh, and the other exception that Novelette pointed out is if you unplug, if you're a doctor and your patient says, unplug that dialysis machine, and you don't want it anymore, the doctor obeys that instruction. The person does, the doctor hasn't murdered anyone. But 5 years ago, the courts added another exception. And that one got into some gray territory, but mostly people thought it was probably okay. And that was, if a person is suffering very, very badly, and they are asking to die, and they are very near the end of their life. So they're not on a dialysis machine or an intravenous. There's nothing to unplug, but they're in terrible pain. They're going to die, maybe in a couple of days, maybe in a couple of weeks, maybe in a couple of months, but they're definitely on their way down. If they want to die because of their terrible suffering, the law now says it is okay, not for just anybody, but for a doctor to assess the situation and say, yeah, I'm afraid we can't help you anymore. We've given you all the pain medication we can give you. We've done what we can to treat your symptoms, to bring you back. We're not able to do anymore. You are suffering terribly. You are going to die, and if you want to die, the doctor will give you an injection that will end your life. if you ask them clearly and give your consent. And that's not considered murder anymore in Canada 5 years ago. Now, last year, the law went way further because 5 years ago, we worried about this a bit because the law only applies to medical conditions. And every one of us, because we have some kind of disability, is considered to have a medical condition. They kept saying it's just at the end of your life. And we said, we're not sure you're going to stop there. And sure enough, a year ago, they said, everybody is pretty comfortable with this new law, this new exemption to the crime of murder. Now we're going to take it a little further. Now, for the past year, if you have a medical condition, and remember, that means all of us, as far as I can tell, people with disabilities, and you are suffering, that you could be nowhere near dying. You are still young, you are still very much alive, but you are deeply in pain. It could be physical pain, it could be psychological pain. If you ask your doctor, you will receive a needle to end your life. Now, all of a sudden, this began to feel like a nightmare to us in the world of disability because, well, you've spent the last half hour telling us how doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals, governments won't let us make choices. For example, Sandra can't choose whether to live with her partner or has to choose whether to live with her partner or to have benefits and be able to support her life with her daughter. She's not given that choice. Tara isn't given the choice to receive a simple email with instructions about her medication. Rainbow isn't given the choice to be gendered in the way that she wishes. But suddenly, the government said, guess what? If you choose to die, if you give up the way that Kelly described, we give up when we lose hope. And you say to a doctor, I want to die, they'll do that. They'll even come to your home and make a house call. You won't have to wait 6 months or a year like you do for housing or like you do for mental health services. You won't have to pay a penny, which is good because a lot of people with disabilities don't have a penny to spare, they figure. But the doctor will come on the day you ask them, and they will give you a needle and take your life. And they say, that's a new choice. That's giving people more choice. And a lot of us are very concerned about that. But I'd like to hear how you feel about that. And I'd also like to hear if you have questions about how I've described it, because I talk about it all the time, and sometimes I forget and leave something important out.
Does anybody have, sorry, Catherine.
Just back to you, Doris.
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you for that. I found that to be very clear, but does anybody have a question about anything Catherine just said? Sandra, sure.
Yes, I would like, okay, so basically what you just said was the government is allowing us to end our lives, but not better our lives.
Exactly.
I don't understand that.
You said it, Sandra. You said it right there. Right there. And whose mom had done the research on the
Tara.
Tara, your mom. Yeah, she might have found the clue. Because it's pretty cost effective. It's a lot less expensive than taking care of us.
Right, Sandra?
Sorry, I shouldn't jump in like that.
Yeah, like, so Sandra, Catherine and Tara was sharing that, you know, that there's actually some proof that it costs less money to end someone's life than to take care and provide the supports needed. So, Catherine, is it okay if I go around with everybody and they can, as if they were talking to the government, and say, what would you like to say to the government about that? Like, in terms of, you could say something to the government about, you're letting us end our life with all the suffering that's being caused without providing the supports. But what would you like to say to them? If you could tell them one or two or three things, what would that be? Maybe I'll start with Tara.
You're like picking on me today. There's a lot that needs to be said to the government if they would actually listen. I'm not holding my breath on that, but I'm hoping they'll wake up eventually. The government needs to understand that people with disabilities are worthy of living their lives with happiness and joy. They just need some supports. Part of the what would I say? Part of the study that I sent to you, Doris, they were saying the cost of keeping, basically the cost of keeping persons with disabilities is far outweighs the cost of anesthetizing them with disabilities. And I think they were saying it was somewhere around $2,000 to put us out of our misery, instead of possibly giving us a little bit more financial support that could help us live, well, not only financial support, but like medical support or home care support or whatever is needed. They'd rather just have us check out and the end. So it's simple things the government could do, and they're spending millions and billions of dollars on, say, a bridge that doesn't really need to be fixed or replaced. However, they're okay with basically killing people with disabilities because it makes the government's life easier. And the government's choosing to make, what would you say, financial decisions that are affecting people's lives. And even if they're not directly encouraging death, they are giving that option, which is still encouraging it. And unfortunately, it's persons with disabilities that are the target, because as far as I totally understand, not other marginalized groups are being offered this wonderful option to die, even though there are many other marginalized groups that are suffering. So I'm kind of at a loss in that thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Catherine, did you want to just explain what Tara was saying about the permanent disability or ongoing medical condition?
Yes, the requirement for MAiD, which is what it's called, medical assistance in dying. The requirement for MAiD is that you have to have a medical condition that can't be cured by any means that you find acceptable. In other words, maybe there's a really painful treatment that would help you, but you're not prepared to do that. So your condition, your medical condition, is permanent and can't be changed. That's the only requirement. There are some, there's some fine print, but basically, if you have no disability, you have no medical condition, this is not an option for you. It's only for us.
Hey, thank you. And wow, that hour and a half went by very fast, and I'm realizing we have to stop soon. So I'm just wondering, and Catherine, let me know if we have time for this, if we could just quickly go around and this time quickly say the one thing you want to tell the government about this medical assistance in dying. Is there one thing you want to say about it to the government, or not? Doesn't have to be one thing, but just if you could summarize it quickly, or is that too hard to do? Sandra?
I would like to say, let us better our lives, not end our lives.
Fantastic. Rainbow?
I would probably say I would like to tell the government that it's hard to explain. My goodness, I know it's very hard because I'm going through like hell as well. I'll probably say definitely for people that are living on ODSP and stuck in market rents, we need our tax rate raised to be more accessible at like income, and so we can survive more better, because right now it's like it's hell on earth. And I don't agree with this whole medical assistant in dying. It's just it's too sickening for it's sickening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you,
You're welcome.
Skittles. Thank you, Rainbow. Skittles?
Well, when I was in school, I actually learned a bit about this law of the medical assisted dying, but instead of it with people with disabilities like us, it's more like seniors with going through pain such as dementia patients. And one thing I would tell the government, other than using so much profanity, like swear words, because I'm trying to keep it clean on here, but to raise like ODSP and raise ODSP, OW, make it a lot easier for us folks with disabilities, or what we call in Pride Scarborough abilities, to help us find jobs a lot easier. Because even for me, like, it's really hard for me to find a job with my disability, and not many people will understand that.
Mhm.
And the fact
So-
that to raise ODSP, like, I have friends who use their ODSP for bills and stuff, and they only left with like not even $20 in their account. That has to do them for like a month with like groceries and all that stuff. Like,
Yeah, right.
it's just ridiculous.
And ODSP, for people that aren't in Ontario, is disability support. And do we have, Catherine, are we okay to do a couple of quick more? Or I know we have a pretty hard stop, right?
No, I mean, I would like to hear from anyone
Okay.
once if they have something to say.
Yeah. Is there anybody else that hasn't spoken yet that would like to say?
I would like to say something.
Please.
I like to see the government increase a lot more safe, a lot more opportunities for people with disabilities and people that are, and give people that are hearing and that cannot hear, give them some sort of device so that they can get to write what they need to write to doctors, and so that the doctors will understand what they need.
Thank you. And I think we heard from everyone with the last word except from Kelly. Kelly, do you have anything quickly to add to this or say?
I was just piecing together like sort of like Skittles. You're trying to keep it, neutral. One word that come to mind is accountability. If the damage after the fact, the family, kids and stuff, and individuals going to leave behind, what's the government going to do about that? You can make funds and make it cheaper to assist people in dying, but yet you can't make proper housing, which sometimes that can lead to someone wanting to die and get sick, be neglected. So again, where's the accountability in all of it?
Right.
And
can you help us with that word, Kelly? What does accountability mean?
Basically responsibility. So if a family's so distraught after their family member has to go through, say, the injection for assisted dying, or as I once was told, I look at it as like assisted suicide too. Because if someone has intellectual disability, they might be having a bad day, but they can't distinguish a bad day from wanting to die. But the doctor just says, okay, you're saying you want to die, here's the shot. To me, that's assisted suicide. There should be accountability, again, government being responsible. You're assisting, none of us could go up and give any random person a shot if they want to die, because we'll be held accountable for murder and the actions, the damage it caused. So doctors should be held in the government the same. Wiping out certain ethnics and populations is not the answer to do it. That's how I'm looking at this. This is not the way to do things. There's still going to be poverty, people struggling, you name it, that can't advocate for themselves. So this is not really the answer to me. I think it's like a Band-Aid fix for them to do a lot of ethnic groups out there. I think they don't want middle class. They don't want lower class people. Like it doesn't work that way. So again, they should be held responsible for the after effects and the continued domino effects if they continue to do this. That's the way I see it.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you. I know we're running out of time, so I have to turn this over to Catherine, but I just want to say you always are so willing to come and share your experiences, and they're painful experiences sometimes. But the thing that you teach me, and I'm always learning every time I'm with you, is just how much strength and how much you believe in yourself and the things that you can do. That's why you keep showing up, right? You keep showing up because you need to share because you want to help others. You don't just want to help yourself, you want to help others. So I just want to say I really, really want to thank you for doing that again today to this group. And thank you, Catherine.
Well, I'm right back at you, every one of you. And I'm not going to rush my thank you. Instead, I'm going to say, maybe if people can just stay on after we close, then we can just tell you how much we love you and how much we value what you've said. The filibuster has a tradition now of spending some time reflecting and remembering our kinfolk, our people with disabilities, members of our community who are not with us. Many of whom are not with us because they gave up hope and they've committed suicide, and more will be turning, as Kelly says, to their doctors to help them do that. And so we're going to do that now. And just before we do, I'm going to tell people who are listening that our next broadcast will be this Thursday, May the 5th, at 4 p.m. in BC, 7 p.m. in Toronto, 8 p.m. in Nova Scotia, and you can do all the math, but it's going to be on our website, and the theme is going to be a great discussion. Everyday ableism equals everyday dehumanization, and how this contributes to MAiD. So we hope everyone will come back and during that conversation. But right now, for closing, I'm going to hand things over to a very important and powerful friend of the filibuster, my dear friend, Q. Go ahead, Q.
Thanks, Catherine. I've been sitting in this broadcast with y'all, just listening to everything that today's panelists have had to say and really appreciating the insights and conversations that have happened. Thanks for your facilitation in that as well, Doris and Catherine. Yeah, I'm Q. I am currently living on the territory of the Chiquayak and Palault tribes of the Stolo Nation. I think a lot about what my relationship with this land is as a white person who is not invited here, who's a settler and a descendant of colonizers, and what I owe to this land. And to me, one of the biggest things that I come away with is I owe community, and I owe any kind of energy I can put into the people that I love and care about and am in relation with. I am a white queer. I am non-binary. I use it or they pronouns. I have big glasses that I'm always hiding behind. I use supplemental oxygen through a nasal cannula, and I have a tattoo on my face, and I'm currently wearing a sweater that I made myself, which I'm very proud of. So if you know me, you know I've been bragging about it all weekend. I think that these topics are really serious and heavy, and I try to give them the due weight that they're owed, while also knowing that like queer and disabled and racialized joy is also at the heart of all of our movements. I've been having some technical issues with some writing that I did for this little piece here, so I'm kind of winging it. And I want to start by reading the prologue from one of my favorite books. I love moss and I love fungi, and this book is about the entanglement of life. I think it's literally called Entangled Life, and it's about how we're all in relation with the land and the people around us. And yeah, this prologue I feel like really speaks to CRIP embodiments and disabled embodiments. So it goes. I looked up toward the top of the tree. Ferns and orchids sprouted from its trunk, which vanished into a tangle of lianas in the canopy. High above me, a toucan flapped off its perch with a croak, and a troop of howler monkeys worked themselves into a slow roar. The rain had only just stopped, and the leaves above me shed heavy drops of water in sudden showers. A low mist hung over the ground. The tree's roots wound outward from the base of its trunk, soon vanishing into the thick drifts of fallen leaves that covered the floor of the jungle. I used a stick to tap the ground for snakes. A tarantula scuttled off, and I knelt, feeling my way down the tree's trunk and along one of its roots into a mass of spongy debris where the finer roots matted into a thick red and brown tangle. A rich smell drifted upward. Termites clambered through the labyrinth, and a millipede coiled up, playing dead. My root vanished into the ground, and with a trowel I cleared the area around the spot. I used my hands and a spoon to loosen the top layer of earth and dug as gently as I could, slowly uncovering it as it ranged out from the tree and twisted along just below the surface of the soil. After an hour, I had traveled about a meter. My root was now thinner than a string and had started to proliferate wildly. It was hard to keep track of as it nodded with its neighbors, so I lay down on my stomach and lowered my face into the shallow trench I had made. Some roots smell sharp and nutty, and others woody and bitter, but the roots of my tree had a spicy, resinous kick when I scratched them with a fingernail. For several hours, I inched along the ground, scratching and sniffing every few centimeters to make sure I hadn't lost the thread. As the day went on, more filaments sprang out from the root I'd uncovered, and I chose a few of them to follow all the way to the tips, where they burrowed into fragments of rotting leaf or twig. I dipped the ends in a vial of water to wash off the mud and looked at them through a loop. The rootlets branched like a small tree, and their surface was covered with a filmy layer that appeared fresh and sticky. It was these delicate structures I wanted to examine. From these roots, a fungal network laced out into the soil and around the roots of nearby trees. Without this fungal web, my tree would not exist. Without similar fungal webs, no plant would exist anywhere. All life on land, including my own, depended on these networks. I tugged lightly on my root and felt the ground move. I work in community as what I call a grassroots death doula. I guide people through when they're nearing the end of their life. And I particularly work with people who are isolated. And often that's people who are in poverty and people who are queer. And those two are often meeting points. And when I think about fungal networks, I think about the ways that we carry everyone that we've known with us, and they connect us to each other, and they connect us to the earth, they connect us to the sky, they connect us to the water. And those people, while their bodies are gone and their stories might be untold, we still have known them, and we know them forever, as long as we're alive, and then as long as the earth is alive, and as long as the solar system and the universe are still going. I've known a lot of people who've accessed MAiD, whether it was because they were at the end of their life or because the oppressions and systemic inequalities that they faced were too much for them to continue fighting. And it's something that I think a lot of disabled people are now grappling with, something that we've grappled with for a long time even. And I think if we could all just sit and remember someone that we've known who is now, you know, only with us in spirit or only with us in our memories, if we could sit with them for a moment and remember them and remember all of the people that we didn't get a chance to know, but other people are holding. We can take that moment now. Thanks again to Doris and Catherine for facilitating such rich conversations, and to everyone who was on today's panel. Again, I really appreciated everything y'all had to say, and really gave me a lot to think about as well in the ways that we do things and work together. I think that's it, right, Catherine? Oh, you're still muted.
I'm so sorry. Yes. Yes, I had trouble getting to my mute button as you interpreted. Yes, I think that's a beautiful moment for us to close on, everyone. Please come again. This space is for all of us. We work together, we learn together, we survive together. So please come back. Thank you all. So we'll stop the live stream if we could, and stop, let our interpreters